Welcome to Talk English Daily. We're going to jump right in today. Picture this scenario. Tell me if this induces even just a mild wave of panic for you. You're at a networking event, or maybe it's a company lunch, a team mixer.
You're standing in a room, you don't really know anyone, you're holding a cold cup of coffee, someone walks up to you, smiles, and says, hey. You smile back, you say hi, and then absolute, complete nothingness.
The blank brain.
Exactly, the completely blank brain.
Yeah.
Every single question you try to formulate in your head suddenly sounds profoundly weird.
Yeah.
Or entirely too personal, or I don't know, just completely boring.
So you both just kind of stand there. You're trapped in this agonizing, heavy silence. You hear the clock ticking. You hear other people laughing across the room until one of you manages to invent a desperate reason to walk away.
Right. And what's the result of that? You spend the rest of the entire event executing what I call the snack table retreat.
Oh man, the snack table retreat. I know it entirely too well.
You basically just orbit the food. You hold a small plate of cheese for an hour, purely because it gives you something to do with your hands, you know. It feels slightly less awkward than just standing alone in the middle of the room.
I have to admit, I've absolutely been that person. I've hidden by the snack table. I've pretended to be deeply, intensely interested in a bowl of pretzels just to avoid making eye contact with anyone.
Oh, for sure. It's the universal safe zone. The snack table is essentially a magnet for everyone who doesn't quite know how to initiate or sustain a social interaction in that moment. It just provides a physical task to mask the social paralysis.
But here's the thing. It's not that we don't want to talk to people. We really do. We want to connect. We don't know how to start.
Right. Or if we do somehow manage to start, we have absolutely no idea how to keep it going.
And maybe the most terrifying part of all, which is the part nobody ever really talks about. How do you end it gracefully when it's actually time to move on? How do you leave without feeling like you're literally running away?
Which is precisely what makes today's conversation so important for me. We're taking a complete analytical look at the mechanics of casual conversation. We're going to deconstruct small talk.
Yes, we are. We'll look at the hidden architecture of how to start, how to sustain, and how to gracefully exit these everyday interactions.
The goal for you, listening right now, is entirely practical. We want to hand you a pattern-based toolkit. We want to make absolutely sure you never have to hide near the snack table again.
By the end of this, you'll be able to walk into any room, any event, any potentially awkward scenario and know exactly what to do. Because small talk is not a genetic trait, it's a learnable skill.
It really is. But hey, before we dive into the first tool, just a quick reminder. If you know someone who always hides by the snack table at events, or someone who completely freezes up during small talk, share this episode with them right now.
Yeah, please do. They'll definitely thank you. And make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss our daily deep dives into the English language.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Small talk gets a terrible reputation. People just love to dismiss it.
They really do. Even native English speakers will roll their eyes and complain about it all the time. They'll say, ugh, I hate small talk. I hate talking about the weather. It's just so fake.
But that dismissal completely misses the psychological function of the behavior. Small talk is not designed to be a deep philosophical exchange of ideas. That's just not its purpose at all.
So what is its purpose then? I mean, if we aren't actually communicating deep information, what are we even doing?
We're building a social bridge. Small talk functions as a testing ground. It's a low-stakes environment where human beings are subconsciously evaluating one another.
Let's spell that word out for you because it's a really important one. Subconsciously. S-U-B-C-O-N-S-C-I-O-U-S-L-Y. Subconsciously. It basically means doing something without actively thinking about it.
Right, exactly. Your brain is asking fundamental survival questions in the background. Is this person safe? Are they paying attention to me? Are they responding to normal social cues? Can I trust them enough to open up more?
I love looking at the evolutionary psychology behind this. Our brains are essentially wired for threat detection. When we meet a total stranger, our amygdala, the fear center of the brain, is slightly activated.
Let's spell that specific part of the brain, just so you have it. Amygdala. A-M-Y-G-D-A-L-A. Amygdala. It handles fear and emotion. When you meet someone new, the amygdala lights up.
And small talk is the verbal mechanism we use to calm the amygdala down.
Yes. It really is. If you jump straight into deep, intense personal topics with a stranger, it feels invasive. It sets off all those neurological alarm bells. Small talk just provides neutral territory.
But wait, let me just push back on this a little bit. If I walk up to someone and ask about the weather, isn't that just a massive cliche? Doesn't the other person know I don't actually care about the rain? Doesn't it feel a bit, I don't know, robotic?
That's a very common fear. And let's spell that word you used, cliché, C-L-I-C-H-E, with an accent on the E. Ah, cliché. It means an idea that's overused and completely unoriginal. And yes, talking about the weather is a cliché. But in social linguistics, we call this phatic communion.
Phatic communion. Let's spell phatic. P-A-T-I-C. Phatic. So, what does that actually mean?
It means language that's used for general social interaction rather than conveying actual information. Think of it kind of like penguins calling out to each other to establish where the colony is.
Oh, wow. I love that image.
Yeah, you aren't exchanging data.
Yeah.
You're just exchanging a signal that says, hey, I'm a cooperative human being.
I see. So the actual content of the words matters way less than the social signal those words are sending, which honestly explains why this is so incredibly difficult for English learners.
Exactly. Why do you think it's so difficult?
Well, because in a traditional language classroom, you're taught how to exchange data. You learn grammar rules. You learn how to write a formal email. You learn reading comprehension. You basically learn how to pass an exam.
Right. But nobody sits you down and gives you the unwritten script for just standing next to a stranger at a coffee machine. Nobody teaches you how to just send a cooperative social signal.
And the gap between academic English and functional social English is just huge. You might have someone who can write a flawless 50-page corporate report, but they completely freeze up when a colleague asks them about their weekend.
This is incredibly common. And frankly, it's not just non-native speakers. Post-pandemic, we're seeing native speakers struggle with this social anxiety just as much. We all kind of forgot the unwritten script.
But the good news for you is there are identifiable patterns. We can actually write the script down. The mystery can completely disappear. So let's look at how to start. Let's look at initiation.
When we look at starting a conversation, we really have to talk about cognitive load. Let's spell cognitive for you. C-O-G-N-I-T-I-V-E. Cognitive. It relates to how your brain processes information.
Okay. So when you walk up to someone, their brain is suddenly forced to process you. If you ask a highly complex or unusual question right away, you overload them. You just increase their cognitive load way too much.
Which is the biggest misconception people have about small talk. They think the opening line needs to be absolutely brilliant. They put immense pressure on themselves to be funny or clever or incredibly insightful right out of the gate.
I definitely do this. I always feel like if I'm not immediately entertaining, the person will just get bored and walk away. I feel like I have to perform.
But the primary job of the opening line is not to impress the other person. Its only job is to make the other person comfortable enough to respond. Comfort over brilliance every single time.
Comfort over brilliance. That is a massive relief, honestly, because trying to be brilliant is exactly what causes the brain to freeze. If my only goal is just make them comfortable, the bar is so much lower.
You're really just trying to execute an icebreaker. Let's call that word I-C-E-B-R-E-A-K-E-R. An icebreaker.
Right.
The metaphor actually comes from large ships that physically break the ice in frozen waters just to create a clear channel for other boats to flow through.
You're just clearing the channel. You're removing that initial social tension.
Exactly. And the best tool for this is a classic conversation starter framework. It's an acronym, FORD.
FORD.
FORD. Family, occupation, recreation, and dreams.
These 4 categories are incredibly reliable. They touch on areas that almost everyone has something to say about, but they remain relatively safe.
Right. They're personal enough to show genuine interest, but not so deeply personal that they feel invasive.
Let's break these down one by one. Having this framework in your head when you're panicking near the snack table is an absolute lifesaver. Let's start with F for family.
Now, we need to be really careful here.
You do.
Because if I walk up to a total stranger and say, hey, tell me about your children, that's going to be terrifying. That completely skips the warm-up phase.
Yes, it really does. In English small talk, family is interpreted much more broadly. Think of it as origin or background. It's about where they come from, not necessarily their private, immediate family life.
Oh, okay, that makes total sense. So what's a good phrase to use here for our listeners? A very safe, very natural opener is simply asking about their history with the city. You can say, are you from here originally?
Let's repeat that slowly for you to practice. Are you from here originally?
Or you can use another variation. Have you lived in this city for a long time?
Have you lived in the city for a long time?
Is asking about their roots. It naturally brings up their background without prying into their private life. And if they want to mention their family, they can. They might say, no, we moved here for my wife's job. You gave them the option.
You can also adapt this to the specific event you're attending, right? If you're at a conference, you could say, have you been coming to this conference for long?
Exactly. You're just establishing a baseline of history. Now, the next letter is O for occupation. This means a person's job or profession. Let's spell it. O-C-C-U-P-A-T-I-O-N. Occupation.
This is the classic networking question, but there's a trap here. If I just walk up and say, what is your occupation? I sound like a police officer filling out a form.
All right, it feels very rigid. You want to frame it gently. So instead of asking directly for their job title, ask about their connection to the current environment.
Okay, so what specific phrase do we use?
Well, wonderfully open phrase is, what brings you here today?
Let's repeat that one. What brings you here today? That is so much softer.
Or you can ask, how are you connected to this event?
How are you connected to this event? I like that it allows them to talk about their work, or maybe they're just there supporting a friend. It gives them choices.
The third letter is R for recreation. Let's spell it R-E-C-R-E-A-T-I-O-N. Recreation. This is simply what people do for fun outside of work.
I love this one because it completely changes the energy of the conversation. When you only talk about work, people stay in their professional, guarded mindset.
Exactly. When you ask about recreation, you signal that you view them as a whole human being, not just a professional contact. It warms the temperature of the interaction instantly.
What are the best phrases for recreation?
Well, the absolute classic is asking about the weekend. You can say, do you have any big plans for the weekend?
Let's repeat that. Do you have any big plans for the weekend?
Or, if you're looking backward, like if it's a Monday or Tuesday, you can say, did you get up to anything interesting over the weekend?
Did you get up to anything interesting over the weekend? That phrase, get up to, is such a great natural phrasal verb. It just means do. What did you do over the weekend?
It feels very standard, but it works so well. It gives them an absolute free pass to talk about something they actually enjoy.
And finally, the letter D, dreams. Now, I have to challenge this one, Jamie. If I'm at a corporate lunch, I'm not going to walk up to an accountant and ask, what are your deepest, most secret dreams?
Yeah, please don't do that. They will absolutely run away from you.
It sounds way too poetic and intense for a lunch mixer.
In the F or D framework, dreams really translates to future aspirations or current projects. It's asking about what they're looking forward to. It's just future focused.
Okay, that's much more practical. How do we ask that naturally?
You can say, what are you working toward at the moment?
Let's try that one. What are you working toward at the moment?
Or you can ask, is there anything exciting coming up for you this year?
Is there anything exciting coming up for you this year? I really like that. It gives them the floor to talk about a passion project, a vacation they're planning, or maybe a promotion they're hoping for.
So that's F-O-R-D, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. F-O-R-D. It's a fantastic mental checklist to keep in your back pocket.
But what if I'm in a situation where jumping right into one of those questions still feels a bit too sudden? Like maybe we're standing in line for food and asking about their weekend right away just feels weird.
That brings us back to situational openers.
Yeah.
If you want to find common ground immediately, the absolute safest place to start is the shared environment.
Because you're both physically in the same room experiencing the exact same thing at the exact same time.
Yeah.
It requires almost zero cognitive load for them to answer.
Yes. You just take a shared reality and use it as a stepping stone.
Yeah.
It removes all the pressure from the individual. They don't have to reveal anything personal about themselves yet.
So if we're standing in that food line, I could say, have you tried the food? It looks pretty good.
Exactly. Have you tried the food? It looks pretty good.
Or if we've been sitting in presentations all day long, I could say, hasn't this been a packed schedule today? Are you finding it useful?
Hasn't this been a packed schedule today?
Right.
They just have to agree or disagree with an observation about the room, the food, or the schedule. It's so easy.
Which naturally leads us right back to the most famous situational opener of all time. We touched on it earlier, the weather.
Ah, yes, the ultimate neutral baseline.
I really want to dig deeper into this. Why does the weather work so perfectly, mathematically, every single time, even though we all know it's a cliche?
It works precisely because it's universally relatable and completely safe. Let's say you comment on the heat. You say, can you believe how hot it's been lately?
Can you believe how hot it's been lately?
When you ask that, you're offering a low-stakes invitation to agree. You're asking for mutual acknowledgement of reality.
I see. So if I say it's hot and they say, yes, it's boiling, we've just proven to each other that we perceive the world in the exact same way. We've proven that we are safe, cooperative communicators.
Exactly. You successfully cross the social bridge. From there, the tension is just gone, and you can easily pivot to a 4D question. Let's spell pivot, by the way. P-I-V-O-T. Pivot. It means to turn or shift.
So I use the weather to open the channel, and then I pivot. I could say, it's too hot to work. Do you have any plans to get out of the city this weekend?
That is a perfect pivot. You move from the shared environment right into recreation. But there's a mechanical trap here, a massive pitfall that will completely ruin the F4D framework, the weather openers, and the situational opener.
Oh no, what's the trap?
The difference between open and closed questions. Let's spell closed. C-L-O-S-E-D.
Yeah.
A closed question is a trap.
A closed question is one that can be answered with a simple yes or no. If I ask a closed question, the conversation usually dies immediately.
Let's demonstrate this for you so you can hear it. I'll ask you a closed question. Ready? Did you enjoy the presentation?
Yes.
Right. And now we're back to silence.
Exactly. I answered your question perfectly. But the conversation completely flatlined. The channel just closed.
Open questions are the engine of small talk. An open question usually starts with what, how, or why. It requires an explanation, a narrative, or an opinion. It literally forces the person to give you more words.
So instead of the closed question, did you enjoy the presentation? How do I make it open?
You ask, what did you think of the presentation?
What did you think of the presentation? Right now, I can't just say yes. I have to say something like, I thought the first half was great, but I got confused at the end.
Exactly. Now you gave me a piece of information I can actually work with. Here's another example. Instead of the closed question, are you here for the networking event?
Which I can answer with a simple yes.
Right. You used the open question we learned earlier. What brings you to this event today?
What brings you to this event today? It demands a story, even a very short story. And that story gives you the material you need to keep the conversation going.
So the complete formula for starting is this. Comfort over brilliance. Use the shared environment or the F4D framework. And always, always keep the question open.
If you follow that formula, you've successfully initiated the interaction. You're no longer standing silently by the snack table holding your cheese. You're actually talking.
But initiating is only half the battle. Now you have to sustain it. You have to keep it going.
Before we talk about how to sustain the conversation and avoid the dreaded interview trap, I want to remind everyone to hit the subscribe button. We release these deep dives every single day to help you master English.
And if you have a story about an incredibly awkward small talk moment, please leave it in the comments. What is the worst silence you've ever experienced? What was your most awkward snack table retreat? We read all of them, and honestly, it reminds us that literally everyone struggles with this.
Okay, let's talk about sustaining the spark. How to keep it going. You asked your great open question. They gave you an answer. Now what?
The biggest mistake people make here is falling into the interview trap. And this feels like an interrogation. Let's spell interrogation. I-N-T-E-R-R-O-G-A-T-I-O-N. Interrogation.
Right. If you just fire one question after another at a person, it feels like a police interrogation. Where are you from? New York. What do you do? Sales. Do you like it?
Yes. It feels terrible. It's so aggressive.
On the flip side, if you just listen silently to their answer and offer absolutely nothing about yourself in return, it feels cold. It feels totally unbalanced. The art of keeping a conversation going is entirely about rhythm.
Rhythm. Let's spell that one. It's tricky. R-H-Y-T-H-M. Rhythm.
Linguists outline a very specific rhythm for natural conversation. It's called the QCQ technique. QCQ. Question, comment, question.
Question, comment, question. I really want to use a physical analogy here. Think of a conversation like a game of tennis.
Yes, a tennis rally.
If I just keep hitting tennis balls at you from a basket over and over, you're just dodging them. That's an interview. To actually play the game, I have to serve the ball, let you hit it back, acknowledge your shot, and then return it. The comment in the QCQ technique is your return swing. The comment is what makes the interaction mutual. Let's demonstrate this with a role play for you. We'll show the bad way first.
Okay, you ask the questions, I'll answer.
So, what do you do for work?
Oh, I'm a graphic designer.
Nice. Do you live nearby?
Okay, let's stop. That felt awful. Why did that feel so bad?
Because I completely ignored your answer.
Okay.
You told me you were a graphic designer, and I just said nice, and immediately served another completely unrelated ball at you. There was zero connection.
It shows that you weren't actually listening to me. You were just waiting for your turn to ask the next question on your mental list.
Exactly. Now let's do it the right way. We'll use the QCQ technique. Question, comment, question. I'll ask, then comment on your answer, then ask a related follow-up. Ready?
Ready.
What do you do for work?
I'm a graphic designer.
A graphic designer. That's so interesting. I find creative work fascinating. What kind of projects do you usually work on?
Oh, wow. That felt entirely different. It felt like a real conversation.
Let's break down what I just did for you. First, the question, what do you do for work? Second, the comment, a graphic designer.
That's so interesting. I find creative work fascinating.
That comment is the bridge. You proved that you heard me. You processed my answer. You offered your own thought about it.
And third, the follow-up question. What kind of projects do you usually work on? The conversation flows naturally from one logical point to the next. It doesn't jump erratically.
But what happens if I don't know anything about their job? What if they say, I'm a structural engineer, and I have absolutely no idea what that means? I can't make a clever comment. What's my follow-up question then?
This is where we introduce the ultimate power phrase in the English language. If you forget everything else today, remember this one phrase.
Tell them what the phrase is.
Tell me more about that.
Tell me more about that. It's so incredibly simple.
It's a magic key. It works for almost any topic. If someone mentions they just moved to a new city, you say, tell me more about that. If they say they had a chaotic week at work, you say, tell me more about that. Why does this phrase work so well psychologically?
Because it hands the steering wheel over to the other person.
Yeah.
You're giving them absolute freedom to steer the conversation toward what they care about most.
And you're signaling deep, genuine interest without having to invent a highly specific, clever question.
Exactly. It removes the cognitive load from you entirely, and it allows them to talk about their favorite subject, which is themselves. But while they're talking, you can't just stand there like a statue.
Right. Staring silently while they explain their job is terrifying.
You have to use active listening signals. Let's spell active.
Right.
ACTIVE. Active listening. These are the verbal and nonverbal cues that maintain the energy of the conversation.
In English, these are those small, frequent interjections. Words like, really?
Or, I had no idea.
That's so funny.
Right.
Wow, how did that go? If we go back to the tennis analogy, these signals are like the squeak of your shoes on the court. It shows you're moving, you're tracking the ball, you're engaged in the game.
Without active listening signals, even if you ask really good open questions, your silence while they answer makes the interaction land completely flat.
The goal of all this back and forth, the Fate-Ready framework, the open questions, the QCQ rhythm, the active listening, is to reach a very specific psychological turning point.
Yes, we're trying to find common ground. Let's spell common. COMMON. Common ground.
This is the exact moment where small talk stops being a warm-up exercise and actually becomes a real human connection. It's the moment you discover an overlap.
Maybe you discover that you both lived in the same neighborhood 5 years ago, or you both share the exact same frustration with a specific software program at work, or you both love the same obscure sci-fi movie.
When you find common ground, you achieve rapport. Let's spell rapport because it's a really tricky word for learners. RAPPORT. The T is silent. Rapport.
Rapport is a state of harmonious understanding. When you find common ground and build rapport, the psychological tension completely drops. You're no longer strangers evaluating each other for threats. You're two people sharing a reality.
It feels amazing when it happens. But we have to be honest with you. Conversations don't always flow perfectly upward to that magical point of common ground. Sometimes they stall.
Yes, they do. Sometimes you hit a lull. Let's spell lull. L-U-L-L. A lull is a pause. A silence.
Let's demonstrate a lull for you. We're talking the topic finishes and then, man! Even just doing that on purpose right now makes my stomach drop.
It's highly uncomfortable. In English-speaking cultures, research shows that a silence lasting longer than 4 seconds in a casual conversation begins to trigger feelings of rejection and anxiety.
We panic. We instantly think, oh no, the conversation is dying, I've done something wrong, I'm boring.
It is vital to destigmatize the lull. A lull is not a failure. It's simply a temporary pause where neither person is speaking and the energy drops slightly. It's just a natural breathing moment.
If you think about conversations with your closest friends, they're full of pauses. You don't speak continuously without taking a breath. The lull is perfectly normal. The trick is just not to panic.
Exactly. The trick is to use the lull gracefully to transition to a new topic. You don't have to force the previous topic to keep going if it's naturally finished.
So how do we transition? How do we shift gears without making it weird?
You use bridging phrases. These are specific sentences designed to smoothly carry you from one topic to another.
What's a good bridging phrase to try?
You can say, actually, speaking of that, I've been meaning to ask you.
Actually, speaking of that, I've been meaning to ask you, that's great if the topics are slightly related, but what if I want to change the subject completely?
You can say, that reminds me, even if the connection's very loose. Or, my personal favorite, you just acknowledge the shift honestly. You say, so, completely different question.
So, completely different question. I love how honest that is. It just clears the slate. You pause, you take a breath, and you say, so, completely different question. Are you going to watch the keynote speaker later? It gives you permission to restart the engine.
It shows real confidence. You're comfortable enough with the silence to let it exist for a moment, and then you confidently pivot.
Okay, so we have the rhythm down. We're doing the QCQ tennis rally. We're using active listening. We're surviving the lulls with bridging phrases.
But even with the right rhythm, your vocabulary choices still need to be smooth. There are some very specific linguistic pitfalls, traps that people often fall into when trying to make conversation in English.
These are subtle phrasing choices. Sometimes translating directly from your native language into English creates an accidental problem. It literally changes the temperature of the room.
Let's look at trap number 1. This is incredibly common. Asking someone, what is your job?
What is your job? Grammatically, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that question. It's a perfectly correct English sentence.
But socially, in conversational English, it feels incredibly blunt. Let's spell blunt. B-L-U-N-T, blunt. It means too direct, almost rude.
It feels abrasive. As we said earlier, it sounds like an immigration officer or someone reading from a clipboard. It triggers that interview trap feeling immediately.
So what's the smoother, more natural English version you should use?
The natural way to ask this is, what do you do?
Let's repeat that for you. What do you do?
Or you can say, what do you do for a living?
What do you do for a living? Or simply, what do you do for work?
These phrases achieve the exact same goal, but they're relaxed, open, and inviting. They feel like an exploration rather than a data extraction. It's amazing how changing just 3 words completely softens the impact.
Let's look at trap number 2. This one's fascinating from a psychological perspective. It involves the phrase, I'm boring at parties.
Oh, I hear this a lot. A learner will say, I'm sorry, I'm boring at parties.
This is a classic mistranslation that accidentally sabotages your self-image.
Right.
Often a person is just trying to express that they find social situations overwhelming or that they struggle to think of small talk.
Right, but saying I'm boring in English attacks your own core character. It tells the other person that you're inherently uninteresting as a human being.
It's a self-deprecating trap. You're basically warning them not to talk to you. The language we use literally shapes how people perceive us in these spaces.
So what's the accurate, smooth version to express that social anxiety without insulting yourself?
The natural phrase is, I find it hard to make conversation at parties.
Let's repeat that. I find it hard to make conversation at parties.
Or, I'm not great at small talk.
I'm not great at small talk. Notice the psychological shift here. You're moving the problem away from your identity. I'm boring to a specific skill or environment. I'm not great at small talk.
It's an honest admission of vulnerability without tearing yourself down. Let's spell vulnerability for you. V-U-L-N-E-R-A-B-I-L-I-T-Y. Vulnerability. It means showing a slight weakness, honestly.
And interestingly, admitting that you struggle with small talk is actually a fantastic way to build rapport, because it's incredibly relatable.
It's an instant common ground moment. If a stranger says to me, honestly, I'm not great at small talk, my immediate internal reaction is relief. I usually respond, oh my gosh, me neither. It's exhausting. Boom. Connection made.
Vulnerability breeds connection, but calling yourself boring just creates awkwardness.
Okay, trap number 3. Asking someone, do you have hobby?
Aside from the missing article, it should be, do you have a hobby? The phrasing itself is just too stiff.
It feels very narrow. When you ask, do you have a hobby, it sounds like you're asking them to select an activity from a pre-approved list of officially recognized hobbies.
Yeah, like, do you do woodworking? Do you collect stamps? Check one box. It doesn't sound conversational at all.
The open, natural version is much softer. You ask, what do you like to do in your free time?
What do you like to do in your free time? Let's practice that. What do you like to do in your free time?
Or, a very native sounding phrase, what do you get up to outside of work?
What do you get up to outside of work? These phrases invite a much richer answer.
They might not have a formal hobby like building model airplanes, but they might love trying new coffee shops or walking their dog in the park or reading science fiction novels.
By broadening the question, you remove the pressure. You allow them to share whatever brings them joy naturally. It all comes back to the core concept of rapport. All of these subtle shifts are designed to lubricate the conversation.
They remove the friction so that trust can build. And that trust is what carries you through the entire interaction, right up until the very end.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps the most difficult hurdle: how to end gracefully. We've started beautifully. We kept the rhythm going with QCQ. We navigated the lulls. We built rapport.
But eventually, inevitably, the party has to end. The lunch is over. You have to go back to your desk. You have to move on.
How do we walk away without making things suddenly painfully awkward? Ending a conversation is the most underrated skill in communication.
Because ending a conversation well is the most powerful thing you can do for your social reputation. People remember exactly how you made them feel at the very end of an interaction.
It's called the recency effect in psychology. You remember the last thing that happened. A warm, graceful exit leaves a lasting, positive impression. A clumsy exit destroys all the rapport you just built.
But it's so hard. Saying "I have to go" or "just nice to meet you, goodbye" feels so abrupt. It feels like you're slamming a door in their face.
It triggers that tiny abandonment anxiety in the other person. They think, oh, they hated talking to me.
The natural English exit isn't just a single phrase. It's a structural process. It's a three-part graceful exit. And once you understand the three parts, it takes exactly 15 seconds to execute.
Let's break this down. 3 parts. Step 1 is the wrap-up signal. Let's spell wrap. W-R-A-P, wrap.
You can't just suddenly stop talking. You have to give a small linguistic signal that things are winding down. You use phrases like, "It's been so great talking to you."
Let's repeat that. It's been so great talking to you.
Or, "I've really enjoyed this conversation."
I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Or a gentle, "Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time."
Think of this like the yellow traffic light at an intersection. It tells the other person to prepare for a stop. It's not the red light yet, but the deceleration has begun.
Exactly. Once you give the signal, you move immediately into step 2. The reason. In English small talk, you typically provide a brief reason for moving on.
Let's talk about these reasons. What kind of reasons are we giving?
Very simple logistical reasons. You can say, "I should go find a glass of water."
I should go find a glass of water.
Or, "I promised myself I'd say hello to a few more people."
I promised myself I'd say hello to a few more people.
Or, "I see a colleague I need to catch up with."
Now, I have to ask about this. Are we basically required to tell a white lie about getting water just to escape the conversation? Why is this reason necessary?
It's not about deception. It's a social softener. Think of the wrap-up like wrapping a physical birthday gift. You don't just hand someone a cardboard box. You put nice paper on it. It requires a bit of presentation.
Okay, so the reason is the wrapping paper.
Yes. The reason tells the other person that they aren't being rejected or abandoned. You aren't leaving because they're boring. You're leaving because a logistical necessity requires your movement.
It protects the ego of the person staying behind.
Precisely. It maintains the rapport you just spent 10 minutes building. If you just say, "Okay, bye," the implication is, "I'm completely done with you."
But if you say, "I need to go grab some water," the implication is, "I'd love to stay and talk more, but my physical needs are calling me away." It's an act of politeness and respect.
It's wrapping the gift. So we have the wrap-up signal. We have the gentle reason. What's the final step?
Step 3 is the forward close. This is the crucial part that many people miss, which results in that abrupt door slamming feeling.
The forward close leaves the interaction on a high note and implies future connection. It tells the other person that the interaction was valuable.
What phrases do we use for the forward close?
You can say, "I hope we get the chance to chat again."
I hope we get the chance to chat again.
Or, "Let's keep in touch."
Let's keep in touch.
Or if it's a professional setting, "I'll definitely look you up on LinkedIn."
I'll definitely look you up on LinkedIn. It basically says the conversation is ending, but our potential connection is still open.
Let's put it all together. Let's role play the full 3-part graceful exit for you so you can hear the flow. I'll deliver it to you, Alex. "It's been so great talking to you." That's the signal. "I promised myself I'd say hello to a few more people before the lunch ends." That's the reason. "But it was genuinely lovely meeting you, and I hope we get a chance to catch up again later." And that's the forward close.
Wow. Perfect. 15 seconds. You smoothly disengage, you protected my ego, and you left a warm, lasting impression.
You have successfully navigated the entire arc of small talk, from start to sustained to exit.
When you break it down like this, from the A40 framework to the QCQ tennis rally to this 3-part exit, it really does stop feeling like a terrifying mystery. It's just a set of tools.
It's an architecture of connection. And knowing the architecture removes the fear. The snack table scenario is officially obsolete. You never have to hide again.
We've covered so much ground today. The psychology of the start, the rhythm of the middle, the grace of the end. We really want to hear how you apply this.
Yes, please subscribe to Talk English Daily and leave a comment with your most awkward small talk story. We all have them. We want to read yours.
Here's my challenge to you, the listener. You now have a massive toolkit, but you don't need to use all of it at once. That would be overwhelming.
I want you to take just one tool from today. Pick one thing.
Maybe you decide to ask one truly open question at your next meeting. Maybe you try using the phrase, "Tell me more about that," with a colleague tomorrow. Or maybe you just practice executing a flawless 3-part graceful exit at a family dinner this weekend.
Pick one thing and try it. Embrace the awkwardness. Real improvement in social skills and in language learning only comes from real, sometimes clunky attempts. Every attempt builds the muscle.
And as we conclude, I want to leave you with one final, somewhat provocative thought.
We've spent this entire time analyzing small talk as a mechanism for strangers to establish safety, find common ground, and build initial rapport.
But if we look at our longest, most intimate relationships, our partners, our best friends, our family members, do we ever truly graduate from small talk?
Think about it. Do we ever reach a point where we don't need it? Or do we actually constantly need to use these exact same gentle patterns to maintain connection?
The open questions, the active listening, the small bids for connection about the weather or the day's events, we use them to continually reestablish that safety and common ground with the people we already love.
Is small talk really just a trick for strangers? Or is it the daily maintenance of all human connection?
That is a fascinating thought to leave on. The warm-up never really ends. Keep practicing, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow on Talk English Daily.
Talk English Daily. Subscribe for new episodes